Hi everyone, so as many of you will know, I have an imaginary world, also called a paracosm, that I have been building for the last 20 years. My paracosm, called Chutasia, is the world from which my stuffed toy hedgehog Chutney comes from. In today's video, what I'm going to be doing is giving an overview of Chutney's life in Chutasia and how it is that she ended up coming through an interdimensional time travel microwave to end up being inside of the stuffed toy hedgehog on Earth. If you are new to paracosms and interdimensional time travel microwaves, do check out my previous two videos where I go into a lot more depth about what I mean by that. So let's talk about Chutney's life. For those who are new, Chutasia is a land where Chutasian hedgehogs live. And Chutasian hedgehogs, they're not really like Earth hedgehogs. They're a lot more like stuffed toy hedgehogs, but unlike on Earth, the Chutasian hedgehogs, they can walk and talk on their own without needing a human's assistance. So Chutasia consists of 11 islands, and in the middle is the biggest island, which is called Chutaland, and it's home to the Chutasian royal family and the royal palace. Now, some of you might already know that Chutney is actually the princess of Chutasia and her mum is currently the queen of Chutasia. But we're starting our story before Chutney was even born. So the royal family are living in Chutaland, and one of the main crops, one of the most important foods for Chutasian hedgehogs is potatoes. So the potato crop is the main crop grown in Chutaland. And about 4 years before Chutney was born, the potato crop started to fail. And this led to all sorts of havoc, which we will go into in future videos. And what happened is that it led to the rise of an anti-monarchist rebel group who were called the Uri-Nation. Now, let me explain a bit more about the Uri-Nation. So the Uri-Nation, they had some kind of like conspiracy about the royal family trying to deliberately sabotage the potato crop to keep people poor. And so they started a movement against the royal family. And the royal family had to move out of Chutaland onto another island, which we will come to in just a moment. So a bit more about the Uri-Nation group, who will certainly be mentioned in the future. They also have some religious beliefs that are characteristic to their, I suppose, ideology. And they believe in a god called Hod. And they believe that Hod made their bodies, and therefore their hedgehog bodies are pure and holy. And therefore anything produced by their bodies was also holy. And so they had an idea, and the Uri-Nation were led by a guy called Farmer John Poppy, who's actually a distant relative of Chutney. So he's actually got some real blood. So maybe he was just a bit jealous of the royal family. I don't know. We'll learn more about Farmer John Poppy in future episodes. So Farmer John Poppy comes up with this idea that since the bodies are holy and everything the body produces is holy, why not try weeing on the potatoes? Now, I know it's a strange idea, and you know, a lot of hedgehogs in Chutasia also thought it was a strange idea, but let's go with it. So the royal family decide it's too dangerous in Chutaland and that they need to take refuge on another island called Gnozeton. And Gnozeton is most famous for having the only prison in Chutasia. So yeah, they decided to seek safety on the island where the prison is, but they thought there'd be a lot of security guards so that then it would be safe. At this point, Chutney's mum, the queen, was unmarried, and there was a bit of pressure and discussion that she should try to find a husband. So while she's on the island, taking refuge during the war, she meets Alfred. Now, I actually have Alfred, and in some future episodes, we're gonna have to explain how it is that Alfred is here, which we will do. I will do in the future, explain how it is that Alfred is also on Earth. And you're not the only one, are you? There's quite a lot of friends who have also shown up on Earth, and we'll have to cover that in future episodes. So Alfred is a spy who works for the Chutasian government. Of course, of course, he's a spy. And his spy name is actually Alfred Zero, because he was the first spy called Alfred to graduate from the spy school. So he's called Alfred Zero. And quite often, most of the time, that's pronounced as Alfredo. So he's known as Alfredo. And Alfredo, well, he starts a bit of a romance with the Queen, and that will be covered in some future episodes. And eventually, little Chutney is born. Well, not so little Chutney. And again, we will explain in a future video why Chutney is so big in comparison to her dad. This has been covered. So anyway, so Chutney is born before her parents get married, and that has some things to discuss in the future. Then her parents do become married. Alfredo marries Chutney's mum, and they have another child. So Chutney has a sister who is called Spud, and Spud again is here with us on Earth, but just not in this apartment. So Chutney is named Chutnita Spikerina Hedgeton II, very regal, but we'll just call her Chutney. And she's called Chutnita II because her mum is also called Chutnita. So her mum is called Chutnita Slugata Hedgeton I. Chutney's sister, Spud, is called Espuda Belinda Hedgeton I. And so that's when they start their lovely little family on the island of Gnozeton. And during their time on Gnozeton, Chutney decides to establish a university and to do some research. At the university, she is the only lecturer and the only student, very entrepreneurial, and she does some studying about potatoes because the War of the Potato is still ongoing, and the jury was still out about whether peeing on the potatoes was a good idea or not. So Chutney does some research, and then eventually there are some meetings and they talk to the Uri-Nation, and some peace is temporarily found. And the Chutasian royal family go back to the palace on Chutaland. Now, during the War of the Potato, Chutney did become involved in a couple of battles. Well, battles, you'll see. And her mum, the Queen, found her involvement in the war a bit of an embarrassment. So when Chutney does get back to the palace, she doesn't get to stay there very long, and her mum sends her away to a place called Mastland on the island of Heedhog. Now, although the Chutasian Palace and Mastland are kind of close together if you draw a line on the map, it's actually quite a difficult journey through some mountains and things, and Chutney was probably procrastinating a bit getting there. So Chutney goes on a bit of an adventure to end up in Mastland. And while she's on her adventure, she decides to write a book. And this book becomes a bestseller in Chutasia, and she also accidentally starts a religion by writing this book. What are you like, Chutney? And much more about that in the future as well. So Chutney finally arrives in Mastland on the island of Heedhog. And what she discovers is that Heedhog has a very rudimentary banking system. And the side effect of this is that everybody who lives on Heedhog, all the hedgehogs who live and work on Heedhog, they all receive the same wage because the system can't cope with people having different money. So everyone just gets the same amount of money regardless of their skill or how much effort they put in. And Chutney realizes the set wage that she's been given on Mastland means that she can never afford the boat ticket to leave Mastland. And so there's a bit of a question about whether that was a trap by her mum or not. But yeah, so Chutney realizes that if you do things the legal route, you won't be able to ever leave, and Chutney would quite like to leave. So she starts to get involved in some kind of illegal side gigs. But Chutney is very innocent and she doesn't exactly realize some of the criminal activities she accidentally becomes involved in. But long story short, she does get enough money and she gets to leave Mastland, and she goes on a boat to Catching Cliffs, which is a community of inventors. Now, if you did watch the previous video, you'll have heard a little bit about Catching Cliffs. So Chutney goes to Catching Cliffs because her uncle Elvis is working there at a radio station. And she wants to kind of team up with Elvis and see if she can find a way back into the royal family. Am I doing a good job so far? Yeah? Not embarrassing you? No. So Catching Cliffs is on the island of Spiketek. And as I said, it has this community of inventors, and they are responsible for producing and maintaining a lot of the machines and factories which are in the industrial centre of Chutasia, which is on the island of Slugtech. Yes, the very famous factories of Slugtech, and we'll hear lots more about them. So Chutney, while she's in Catching Cliffs, she's working as like kind of technical support for the factories, and that comes with it lots of, you know, jokes and things come along with that, don't they? And again, Chutney is very innocent, and she accidentally becomes involved in the kind of like underground political movement by accident. What are you like? You're just always getting into trouble, Chutney. So Chutasia actually has a neighbouring realm next to it, which is called Chusela. And Chusela has lots of other species in it, not just hedgehogs. So Chutasia is just Chutasian hedgehogs, but in Chusela they have other species like unicorns, squirrels, raccoons, etc. And they're really keen to trade with Chutasia. In fact, you know, there's some hints that maybe a long time ago there was some communication between Chusela and Chutasia, but the current royal family, Chutney's family, they're not so keen on having trade with Chusela. So there's kind of like an underground political movement that Chutney kind of, again, innocently becomes involved with. Then what happens is an inventor called Mr. Hognit, and this bit of the story may be familiar, an inventor called Mr. Hognit invents an interdimensional time travel microwave, and he wants to host a kind of launch event for his microwave, which he invites the Queen to. So this is an opportunity for Chutney to meet up with her mum and, you know, maybe ask, can I please come home? So she goes to this launch event where her mum is going to be. And it transpires that one of the Queen's main key advisors, who is called Evil Witch Scopalamina, but don't judge her by her name. She might not be evil, she might not be a witch. But anyway, Evil Witch Scopalamina turns out to be part of the Uri-Nation. So although they thought that the Uri-Nation had made peace with them during the War of the Potato, apparently not. And Evil Witch Scopalamina has been whispering all sorts of bad advice into the ear of Chutney's mum. And Scopalamina suggests, why doesn't your daughter, Princess Chutney, be the first one to go in the time travel microwave? And so that's how you ended up here. And if you want to know a bit more about the microwave, do look at my last video where we talked about how microwaves get you to planet Earth. So that's the overview of the timeline of Chutney's life and Chutney's dad, Alfredo. Oh, you guys are so cute. So if you are interested to hear more about Chutney's story and of course the history, geography, politics and religions of the world of Chutasia, then don't forget to subscribe. Series 2 will be coming soon. And if you have particular topics that you're interested in, do leave them in the comments and I will consider them when I'm making the videos. So thank you very much for watching and we'll see you all soon. Bye bye.